The Grand Chamber was the largest room ever built by any species in the galaxy. It floated in space above a dead world called Verath Prime, and inside it, representatives from 847 civilizations had gathered to decide the fate of Earth. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone in the center of the chamber. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Around her, rising up like a mountain of seats and platforms, sat beings of every shape and size. Some had scales, some had fur, some were made of light or metal or things that human eyes could not understand. All of them were looking at her. Elena had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. She had learned 17 alien languages. She had studied the customs of 100 worlds. She had shaken hands with creatures that did not have hands and shared meals with beings that did not eat. All of it had led to today. Today was the vote. The Galactic Concord was not just an alliance. It was the difference between survival and death. Member species received protection from the devouring swarm, a nightmare of machines that had eaten entire civilizations. Members could use the fast travel lanes between stars. Members knew the location of safe places to hide when disaster came. Non-members had none of these things. Non-members were alone. Humanity had been trying to join for 50 years. They had followed every rule. They had shared their technology freely. They had helped in wars that were not their own. They had done everything right, but Elena could see the answer in the eyes of the beings around her. She could feel it in the cold air of the chamber. The vote had not yet happened, but she already knew. High Arbiter. Thesic Vorn rose from his seat at the top of the chamber. He was a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms and eyes like black glass. His species, the Keth, had been part of the Concord for 20,000 years. They considered themselves the wise elders of the galaxy. They considered humans to be children playing with fire. We will now vote on the admission of the species known as humans from the world called Earth, in the system called Sol, Thesic Vorn announced. His voice was cold and sharp, like breaking ice. All representatives will cast their decision. Elena stood perfectly still. She did not beg. She did not make one final speech. She had already said everything she could say. Now, she could only watch. The holographic display above her head began to fill with votes. Red meant no. Green meant yes. Blue meant abstention. Red, 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 red. The color spread across the display like blood in water. Species that Elena had considered friends voted against Earth. Civilizations that had traded with humanity for decades voted against Earth. Even the species that humans had helped save from plague and war voted against Earth. Red, 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 red. Elena watched the numbers climb. 100 against, 200, 300. The green votes came slowly, like drops of rain in a desert. 50 species voted yes, 51, then no more. When it was finished, the display showed the final count. 794 against, 51 in favor, 2 abstentions. The chamber was silent. 847 species waited to see what the human would do. Would she cry? Would she scream? Would she threaten them with war? Elena Vasquez did none of these things. She simply nodded, as if someone had told her the weather outside. "I see," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "May I ask why?" Thesic Vorn made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You already know why, Ambassador. Your species is too young. You have existed for only a small moment of time. And in that small moment, you have done nothing but fight and kill and destroy. You dropped nuclear weapons on your own cities. You burned your own world with pollution and war. You are aggressive. You are unpredictable. You are dangerous." Elena listened without expression. "The Concord exists to protect civilized species," Thesic Vorn continued. "We cannot allow a species like yours inside our borders. You would be like a virus, infecting everything you touch. Perhaps in another 10,000 years, when you have learned to control your violent nature, you may ask again." Around the chamber, many representatives made sounds of agreement. Some laughed. Some whispered to each other in languages Elena could not hear. She waited until they were quiet. Then she spoke. "I understand your decision," she said. "I do not agree with it, but I understand it. You have looked at our history and seen only blood. You have looked at our wars and seen only death. You have decided that we are monsters." She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every species she could see. "But I wonder," she continued, "if you have ever asked yourselves a simple question. If humans are so violent, so aggressive, so dangerous, why are we still alive? We have fought 1,000 wars, yes. We have killed millions of our own kind, yes. But we are still here. Our world is still green. Our children still laugh and play. How can this be if we are nothing but destroyers?" No one answered. The chamber remained silent. "You have made your choice," Elena said. "Now we will make ours." She gathered her delegation with a small gesture. 20 humans in formal clothes rose from their seats and walked to join her. Together, they moved toward the exit of the chamber. Thessic Vorn called after her. "And what choice is that, Ambassador? Will you declare war on the entire galaxy? Will you prove us right about your violent nature?" Elena stopped at the door. She turned back one last time, and for the first time, she smiled. It was not a sad smile or an angry smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something that no one else knew. "No, High Arbiter," she said. "We will not prove you right. We will prove you wrong. And when we do, you will remember this day. You will remember that you had the chance to stand beside us, and you chose to stand against us. You will remember, and you will understand." She walked out of the chamber without another word. The door closed behind her with a soft sound. The representatives of the Galactic Concord looked at each other. Some were confused, some were amused. Some felt a small chill run through their bodies, though they did not know why. High Arbiter Thessic Vorn dismissed the assembly with a wave of his forearms. "The humans will come back," he said confidently. "They will realize they cannot survive alone. They will beg for another vote. They always do." But as he left the chamber, he could not forget the smile on the human ambassador's face. It was the smile of someone who had already won a game that no one else knew they were playing. He told himself it meant nothing. He was wrong. The galaxy expected Earth to die. Without the protection of the Concord, the humans would be easy prey. The devouring swarm would find them eventually. Without access to the trade lanes, their economy would collapse. Without allies, they would wither away like a plant without water. The wise leaders of the Concord gave humanity 6 months. 6 months before they would come crawling back, begging for another vote, willing to accept any terms. 6 months passed. Earth did not call. A year passed. Earth did not call. Instead, something strange happened. Earth went silent. It started slowly. Human trading ships stopped arriving at alien ports. Human diplomats closed their offices and went home. Human tourists, scientists, and workers packed their bags and left without explanation. Within 3 months, there was not a single human left in conquered space. Then came the barrier. Concord sensors detected it first. A field of energy had appeared around the Sol system, surrounding Earth and all its colonies. The field was invisible to the eye, but it blocked all signals and transmissions. Nothing could get in or out. It was as if humanity had built a wall around itself and closed the door. The Keth Dominion sent a probe to investigate. The probe entered the field and vanished. Not destroyed because there was no explosion, no debris, no signal of distress. It simply stopped existing. They sent another probe. The same thing happened. They sent a ship with a crew of volunteers. The ship entered the field and vanished. The crew was never seen again. The Concord held emergency meetings. What were the humans doing? Were they building weapons? Were they planning an attack? Or were they simply dying behind their wall, too proud to ask for help? High Arbiter Thesic Vorn spoke calmly to the assembly. "The humans are no threat," he said. "They have locked themselves in their own prison. Let them stay there. Eventually, the swarm will find them, and the problem will solve itself." Many representatives agreed. The humans were young and foolish. Their barrier was probably a desperate attempt to protect themselves. It would fail, as all things built by young species fail. But some were not so sure. Kira Sondel was an intelligence operative for the Veth hegemony. She was 400 years old and had completed 200 successful missions. She had stolen secrets from fortress worlds. She had escaped from prisons that were supposed to be inescapable. She was the best spy in the galaxy. The hegemony sent her to investigate Earth. Kira took a small ship designed for stealth. She approached the barrier slowly, scanning it with every instrument she had. The readings made no sense. The barrier was not made of any energy she recognized. It did not follow any physics she understood. It was like looking at a door that led to nowhere. She entered the barrier. 3 days later, her ship drifted out of the field. The engines were dead. The weapons were gone. Every piece of advanced technology on the ship had been removed with surgical precision. Kira herself was alive, but barely. The rescue team found her sitting in the dark, her eyes wide and empty. She would not speak for weeks. When she finally did, she could only say one thing. "They are not hiding," she whispered. "They are building." She would not explain what she meant. She could not. Whatever she had seen behind the barrier had broken something in her mind. The greatest spy in the galaxy spent the rest of her life in a hospital, staring at walls and whispering about things that were coming. The Concord tried to ignore the warning. They had other problems to worry about. But then the disappearances began. It started on small worlds near the edge of conquered space. Human expatriates, people who had settled on alien planets before the vote, began to vanish. They did not leave. They did not die. They simply disappeared between one moment and the next. At first, no one noticed. A few missing humans were not important. But then the authorities realized something else was missing too. Technology. The quantum processors that humans had designed for alien factories were gone. The medical machines that humans had built for alien hospitals were gone. The agricultural systems that humans had created for alien farms were gone. Everything that humanity had contributed to alien civilization over 50 years had vanished along with the humans themselves. It was all legal. Every piece of technology was human property. Every patent, every design, every invention belonged to Earth. The humans were simply taking back what was theirs, but the effect was devastating. On the planet Keth 7, the power grid collapsed when the human-designed reactors disappeared. Millions were left in darkness. On the world of Veth Prime, hospitals shut down when the human medical equipment vanished. Thousands died waiting for treatment. On 100 worlds across the galaxy, systems failed and economies crashed because the technology they depended on was suddenly gone. The Conquered had not realized how much they relied on human inventions. In 50 years of trying to join the Alliance, humanity had quietly become the backbone of 100 critical systems. They had shared their technology freely, asking nothing in return. Everyone had accepted the gifts without thinking. Now the gifts were being taken back. High Arbiter. Thesic Vorn called another emergency meeting. His voice was not as confident as before. "This is economic warfare," he declared. "The humans are trying to punish us for the vote. We must respond with force." But what force could they use? Earth was hidden behind a barrier that destroyed anything that entered it. Human technology was already gone, taken by methods no one understood. The humans had not broken any laws. They had simply reclaimed their property and gone home. For the first time, the leaders of the Concord began to feel something they had not felt in thousands of years: fear. What were the humans building behind their barrier? What were they planning? And why had they taken everything back? Some said it was revenge, some said it was preparation for war, some said the humans were simply giving up, gathering their things before the end. Only a few wise observers saw the truth. The humans were not hiding from the galaxy. They were not punishing the galaxy. They were preparing for something else entirely, something that the Concord had forgotten about, something that was coming. Deep in the void between galaxies, far from any star or planet, the devouring swarm was moving. Millions of ships made of black metal and stolen mines were accelerating toward the light. They had consumed 1,000 civilizations. They had eaten entire star systems, and now they were hungry again. They did not know about the vote. They did not care about politics or alliances. They only knew one thing: food was ahead, and they were coming to eat. The warning came at midnight on Keth Prime. Sensors on the outer edge of the system detected movement. At first, the operators thought it was an asteroid field. Then they looked closer and felt their blood turn cold. Ships, millions of ships, a wall of black metal stretching across the stars like a wave of darkness. The devouring swarm had arrived. High Arbiter. Thessic Vorn received the news in his private chambers. His 4 hands trembled as he read the report. The swarm had not been seen in conquered space for 3,000 years. The last time they came, they had eaten 12 worlds before the combined fleets drove them back. That battle had cost 1 billion lives. But this time was different. This time there were more of them, many more. Thessic Vorn sent out the call for help. Every member of the Concord was summoned to defend Keth space. Within days, ships began arriving from across the galaxy. The Veth hegemony sent their fastest warships. The Crystalline Collective sent their living ships. The Machine Lords sent their automated battle fleets. Even species that hated each other put aside their differences to face the common enemy. It was the largest armada ever assembled in galactic history. 10 million ships carrying warriors from 500 different species. They gathered above Keth Prime and prepared to fight. Thessic Vorn stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the sea of lights around him. For the first time in weeks, he felt hope. Surely this would be enough. Surely the swarm could not defeat such a force. He was wrong. The battle began at dawn. The swarm came in waves, endless waves of black ships that seemed to have no end. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply attacked, pouring weapons fire into the Concord fleet like rain falling from the sky. The Concord ships fought back. They destroyed thousands of swarm vessels in the first hour, tens of thousands in the first day. But for every ship they killed, 10 more took its place. The swarm did not care about losses. The swarm did not feel fear or pain. The swarm only knew how to consume. By the 3rd day, the Concord fleet was in trouble. The crystalline ships had been shattered. The Machine Lords had lost half their forces. The Veth warships were running out of ammunition. And still, the swarm kept coming. On the 5th day, the swarm broke through the defensive line. 1 million black ships descended on Keth Prime like locusts falling on a field of grain. The cities burned. The people screamed. The great civilization of the Keth, 20,000 years of history and culture, was devoured in a single night. Thessic Vorn watched from his damaged flagship as his homeworld died. He had lived for 800 years. He had seen wars and disasters and tragedies beyond count. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing could prepare anyone for watching everything they loved be eaten alive. By the 11th hour, the battle was lost. Half the Concord fleet was destroyed. 3 core worlds had been harvested. The swarm was not slowing down. It was accelerating, moving toward the center of the galaxy where the richest worlds waited like fruit ready to be picked. In desperation, The surviving leaders of the Conquered did something that had never been done before. They voted to ask a non-member species for help. The vote was unanimous. Even those who had spoken loudest against humanity now raised their hands. Pride meant nothing when extinction was coming. Thessic Vorn recorded the message himself. His voice shook as he spoke, but he forced himself to continue. "To the people of Earth," he said, "this is High Arbiter Thessic Vorn of the Galactic Concord. We are under attack by the devouring swarm. Our fleets have been devastated. Our worlds are burning. We are facing extinction." He paused, forcing out words that tasted like poison in his mouth. "We ask for your help. We know we have not treated you fairly. We know we rejected your request for membership, but we are begging you now. Please, help us. If not for us, then for the billions of innocent people who will die if the swarm is not stopped." He ended the transmission and waited. Around him, the survivors of the Concorde fleet drifted in space, too damaged to fight, too broken to run. All they could do was hope. The response came in exactly 4.7 seconds. That was impossible. Earth was thousands of light years away. Even the fastest communication systems took hours to reach Seoul. A response in 4.7 seconds meant that humanity had technology beyond anything the Concorde had ever seen. The message was only 2 words. "You voted." Thessic Vorn stared at the screen. His heart sank into his stomach. That was it. That was the human response. 2 words that meant everything and nothing at the same time. You voted. They were not coming. Humanity was not going to save them. The Concorde had rejected Earth, and now Earth was rejecting the Concorde. It was fair. It was logical. It was the death of everyone. But then something strange happened. The swarm stopped advancing toward the galactic center. The millions of black ships that had been moving toward the richest worlds suddenly changed direction. They turned away from Concorde space and began moving toward a different target, Sol, the human system. Thessic Vorn watched in confusion. Why would the swarm attack Earth? The humans were behind their barrier. They were hidden, protected, invisible. Why would the swarm waste time on a single system when there were hundreds of undefended worlds to consume? Unless the swarm knew something the Concorde did not. Unless the swarm could sense what the humans were building behind their wall. Unless the swarm was afraid. The thought was insane. The swarm feared nothing. The swarm was fear itself. But as Thessic Vorn watched the endless wave of black ships turn toward Sol, he could not shake the feeling that something had changed. The swarm was moving with purpose now. Not the random hunger of a mindless predator, but the focused determination of a hunter that had found dangerous prey. Across the Concorde, survivors gathered around their screens to watch. They had no more ships to send. They had no more weapons to fire. All they could do was watch as the swarm descended on the human system. Most expected to see Earth destroyed. The humans had powerful technology, yes, but no one could stand against 17 million swarm vessels. The barrier would fall. The humans would be consumed. And then the swarm would return to finish what it had started. But some remembered the words of the spy, Kira Sondel. They are not hiding. They are building. Building what? The galaxy was about to find out. The swarm entered the Sol system like a black tide rolling over the shore. 17 million ships moved through the darkness of space, their metal bodies blocking out the distant stars. They were the death of civilizations. They were the end of hope. They had consumed 1,000 worlds and would consume 1,000 more. Nothing had ever stopped them. Nothing ever would. The Concorde watched from the edge of human space. They had sent every sensor probe they had left, desperate to see what would happen. Across 1,000 worlds, billions of beings gathered around screens and waited for the end. The swarm reached the barrier that surrounded Sol. For a moment they paused, as if sensing something different about this prey. Then they pushed forward, breaking through the invisible wall like a fist through paper. What they found on the other side changed everything. The humans had been busy. From behind the moons of Jupiter, vast structures began to emerge. They were enormous, each one the size of a small planet, made of materials that shimmered with colors that had no name. They unfolded like flowers opening to the sun, revealing shapes that made no sense to anyone watching, angles that could not exist, surfaces that seemed to go on forever, geometries that hurt to look at. Concord scientists watching the feeds began to cry. Some screamed and clawed at their eyes. The human structures were not just big, they were impossible. They broke the laws of physics simply by existing. The swarm did not hesitate. 17 million ships opened fire on the nearest structure, pouring enough energy to crack a planet into its impossible surface. The structure absorbed it all. The energy disappeared into its depths like water into sand. The structure did not crack or break or even slow down. It simply continued unfolding, growing larger with every second. Then the structures opened their eyes. That was the only way to describe it. Massive circles of light appeared on the surface of each structure, turning toward the swarm like the eyes of giants waking from sleep. And from those eyes came something that no one had ever seen before. A song. It was not sound, because sound does not travel in space. It was something else. A vibration in the fabric of reality itself. A frequency that spoke directly to the mind of every being watching. The swarm ships began to slow down, not because they were damaged, not because they were afraid. They were being rewritten. Their programming, their code, their very essence was being changed by the song. The human structures were speaking to the swarm in its own language, and the swarm was listening. Then came the voice. It was human. Everyone who heard it knew instantly that it came from a human throat, a human mind, a human heart. But it was also something more. Something that had evolved beyond flesh and blood into something greater. The voice spoke to every sentient being in the galaxy at the same time. We tried to join you as equals. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the largest structure, connected to systems that stretched across the entire solar system. She was still human, but she was also part of something bigger now. Her eyes glowed with the light of 1,000 stars. Her mind touched machines the size of worlds. You called us young, she continued. You called us primitive. You called us dangerous. You were right about one thing. We are dangerous, but not to you, never to you. The swarm ships had stopped completely now. 17 million vessels hung frozen in space, their weapons silent, their engines dead. The song had reached into their deepest programming and found the off switch. We only wanted to help, Elena said. From the moment we reached the stars, we wanted to be part of something bigger. We wanted to share what we had learned. We wanted to stand beside you as brothers and sisters, but you would not let us. The moon-sized structures began to move. They surrounded the frozen swarm fleet like hands closing around a ball of clay. So we built something else. Not weapons to destroy you, not armies to conquer you. We built a shield. We built a sword. We built the one thing that could stop the swarm forever. The structures contracted. The 17 million swarm ships began to compress, pushed together by forces that defied understanding. Metal screamed and crumpled. The stolen mines trapped inside the swarm vessels were released, freed from their prison of black metal at last. You left us outside your protection, Elena said, so we became the protection. The compression continued. 17 million ships became 17,000, then 1,700. Then 17. The swarm that had eaten civilizations, that had ended worlds, that had haunted the nightmares of the galaxy for 10,000 years, was being crushed into a space the size of a small asteroid. We are not destroyers, Elena said. We are builders. We took your rejection, and we built something beautiful from it. We took our pain, and we made it into power. We took our loneliness and we made it into strength. The last of the swarm vanished. The asteroid-sized mass of compressed metal hung in space for a single moment. Then the structures opened once more, and the mass was absorbed, devoured, converted into energy and matter that flowed into the human machines. "We have eaten your nightmare," Elena announced. "We have consumed the thing that consumed. The swarm is gone, not just here, everywhere. Our ships will follow its trail into the void between galaxies. We will find every last vessel, every last fragment, every last echo of its existence, and we will end it." She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, kinder. "You are welcome." Across the galaxy, billions of beings stared at their screens in silence. They had just watched humanity do the impossible. They had just watched a species they had rejected save them from certain death. High Arbiter. Thessic Vorn sat alone on his damaged flagship. His homeworld was gone. His people were scattered. Everything he had believed about the universe had been proven wrong in a single day. He thought about the vote. He thought about the way he had spoken to Ambassador Vasquez. He thought about all the times he had called humans primitive, dangerous, unworthy. He had been so blind. The humans had spent 50 years learning about the galaxy. Not to join it, not to conquer it, to protect it. They had known the swarm would come. They had known the Concord would fail. They had prepared for this moment from the very beginning, and when the Concord had rejected them, they had simply smiled and gone home to finish their work. Thessic Vorn lowered his head. For the first time in 800 years, he wept. The humans were not monsters, they were guardians, and the galaxy had never deserved them. 1 year had passed since the day the swarm died. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The great powers that had ruled for thousands of years were broken. The Keth Dominion had lost its homeworld. The Veth hegemony had lost half its fleet. The Crystalline Collective had shattered into 100 smaller factions. The old order was gone, swept away by a wave of black metal ships that had come from the void. But life continued. It always does. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every species worked to rebuild what they had lost. Cities rose from the ashes. Farms grew new crops. Children were born who would never know the fear of the swarm. The nightmare was over, and the future stretched out like an empty road waiting to be traveled, and everywhere there were humans. They had not conquered anyone. They had not demanded payment or revenge. They had not even asked for an apology. They had simply appeared after the battle was over and started helping. Human ships brought food to starving worlds. Human doctors healed the sick and wounded. Human engineers rebuilt power plants and water systems. Human teachers opened schools for orphaned children. Wherever there was need, humans came to fill it. They asked for nothing in return. Some species did not trust them at first. After all the rejection and cruelty, why would the humans help? There had to be a trick. There had to be a hidden price. But days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and the humans kept helping. They smiled and worked and shared what they had, and slowly the fear began to fade. High Arbiter Thessic Vorn watched it all from his small apartment on a refugee station. He had lost everything in the war. His title was meaningless now. His authority was gone. He was just another survivor living on charity, waiting for a future he did not deserve. One day, a message arrived for him. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was requesting a meeting at the Grand Chamber. She wanted him to be there. Thessic Vorn almost refused. He could not bear to face her again. He could not bear to see the woman he had rejected standing in triumph where he had once stood in judgment. But something made him go. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was guilt. Perhaps it was simply the need to understand what had happened and why. The Grand Chamber looked the same as it had on the day of the vote. The same seats, the same platforms, the same vast space filled with light and shadow, but everything felt different now. The chamber that had once been a place of power and pride now felt like a memorial to a time that was gone forever. Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the room, exactly where she had stood 1 year ago. She looked different. Her eyes held depths that had not been there before. Her skin seemed to glow with a faint light. She was still human, but she was also something more. Around her, representatives from hundreds of species had gathered, not to vote, not to judge, just to listen. Thessic Vorn took his place among them. He felt small and old and tired. He had lived for 800 years, and suddenly that felt like no time at all. Elena looked at him. There was no anger in her eyes, no hatred, no satisfaction, just a calm kindness that made him feel even more ashamed. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice filled the chamber without effort. "I asked to speak with you because I know many of you have questions. I will try to answer them." Thessic Vorn found himself speaking before he could stop. "Why?" The word came out cracked and broken. "Why did you save us? We abandoned you. We left you to die. Why would you help us after everything we did?" Elena smiled. It was the same smile she had worn on the day of the vote, but now Thessic Vorn understood it better. It was not a smile of secrets or tricks. It was a smile of compassion. "Because that is who we are," she said simply. She stepped forward, and suddenly the chamber filled with images. Holographic pictures floated in the air, showing scenes from human history, wars and disasters, fires and floods, plagues and famines, so much suffering, so much death. "You looked at our history and saw violence," Elena said. "You saw our wars and decided we were monsters, but you never asked why we fought. You never looked at what we were fighting for." The images changed. Now they showed something else. Soldiers carrying children to safety, doctors working through the night to save strangers, firefighters running into burning buildings, ordinary people sharing food with neighbors, acts of kindness in the middle of horror. "Every war we ever fought, we fought for someone else," Elena continued. "For family, for friends, for strangers we had never met. You saw our worst days and judged us by them. You never saw why we survived them." She turned in a slow circle, meeting the eyes of every species in the chamber. "We survived because we protect each other. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done. When we reached the stars, we wanted to protect you too. When you rejected us, we did not stop wanting to protect you. We simply found another way." Thessic Vorn felt tears running down his face. He did not try to hide them. "We are not dangerous because we destroy," Elena said. "We are dangerous because we protect. There is nothing in the universe more dangerous than a human who has found something to protect. We will burn stars. We will break physics. We will fight gods and monsters and the void itself. And we will never, ever stop." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You voted against Earth, and you were right to fear us, just not for the reasons you thought." She raised her hand, and the images disappeared. The chamber was silent. "The swarm is gone," she said. "We hunted it to the edge of the universe and destroyed every last fragment. It will never return. You are safe now, not because of anything you did, but because we chose to make you safe." She began to walk toward the exit, just as she had done 1 year ago, but this time she stopped and looked back. "You never voted us into the Conquered," she said. "That is fine. We do not need your vote anymore. We have become something bigger than membership in an alliance. We have become the shield that protects all life in this galaxy. Whether you voted for it or not, you are under our protection now." She smiled one last time. "Welcome to the new order." She walked out of the chamber. The door closed behind her with a soft sound. Thessic Vorn sat in silence for a long time. He thought about the vote. He thought about his pride and his fear and his blindness. He thought about how wrong he had been about everything. Then he stood up and walked outside. The stars were shining, beautiful and bright. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the darkness, watching for threats, keeping everyone safe. He had called them monsters. They had called themselves protectors. And now, finally, he understood the difference.